Congratulations, you're a Roman gladiator. Or more accurately, you're about to be, for the next 30 minutes. Waking up in a stone cell that smells like sweat, straw, and quiet dread. Tonight, you're not just hearing about this world. You're living inside it, one full day. From this first uneasy breath to whatever waits for you on the sand by evening. If you're enjoying these immersive journeys into history, a like and a subscribe genuinely helps this channel keep going. And if you'd like, tell me in the comments where you're listening from tonight. Now let your body sink into stillness. Let your breathing slow and let's step into that world together. Your eyes open before the light does. The cell is small, stone on 3 sides, a low wooden door on the 4th. Just enough room for a straw mat and whatever bruises you collected yesterday. Somewhere down the corridor, another gladiator is already awake. You can hear him breathing through his teeth, the way people do when their whole body hurts in new places. This is the Ludus, the gladiator school. Despite what most people imagine, it isn't a prison exactly. It's something closer to a brutal, highly organized training academy. One where the coaches happen to own you, and the final exam is occasionally lethal. You sit up slowly. Everything aches in that specific, layered way that only comes from yesterday's training compounding on top of last week's. Compounding on top of the week before that. It's a bit like waking up the morning after a workout you regret. Except, you don't get to skip tomorrow's session because your legs feel like overcooked noodles. Here, rest is not really optional, and neither is showing up. A guard walks the corridor, banging a wooden stick against each door. Not violently, just a rhythm everyone already knows. Wake up, move. The day starts whether your body agrees or not. You pull on a simple tunic, coarse fabric against skin that's still tender from yesterday's bruises. You step out into a courtyard where dozens of other men are doing exactly the same thing. Some nod at you, some don't. Friendships here are complicated because the man you train beside today might be the man you face in the arena next month. It's a strange kind of camaraderie, close enough to share meals and wounds, but never quite close enough to forget what this place ultimately trains you for. And as the sun begins to properly rise over the walls of the Ludus, one thought settles quietly in your chest, the same thought that settles there every single morning. Whatever today brings, you already survived getting out of bed. That's always the first small victory. The smell reaches you before the food does. Something dense, grainy, faintly sweet from boiled barley, drifting from the communal kitchen at the edge of the courtyard. You take your place in line, wooden bowl in hand, and for a moment, gladiator life looks less like legend and more like a very strict boarding school with worse security. Here's something that tends to surprise people. Gladiators weren't eating roasted meat and wine like the movies suggest. Their actual diet was mostly vegetarian, built around barley, beans, and grains. So heavily so that Roman writers had a nickname for gladiators, hordeari, barley eaters. It wasn't a joke about poverty. It was deliberate. Trainers understood something that modern sports science would later confirm. A layer of subcutaneous fat, the kind just beneath the skin, could actually help protect against cuts in the arena, cushioning blows and reducing how deep a blade might travel before hitting anything vital. So, gladiators were bulked up on purpose, not for looks, but as a kind of edible armor. It's a strange thought that the extra weight you're carrying right now, the fullness in your belly from bowl after bowl of barley stew, might one day be the difference between a shallow wound and a fatal one. You eat quickly, mechanically, the way anyone eats when the meal is fuel rather than pleasure. Around you, other gladiators do the same, some talking quietly, Most simply focused on refilling their bodies before the real demands of the day begin. There's an odd discipline to it, almost monastic. No wine this early, no excess. Just enough to build strength and just enough to be ready. A trainer walks past, glancing into bowls, occasionally grunting approval or muttering something about someone not eating enough. Your body isn't entirely your own here. It belongs, in some very literal sense, to the investment your owner has made in you. Keeping it strong isn't vanity, it's survival, and it's also uncomfortably business. As you scrape the last of the barley from your bowl, the sound of wooden practice swords clattering against each other drifts in from the training yard. Breakfast is over, and what comes next is going to hurt considerably more than a bowl of barley ever could. The training yard is already loud by the time you arrive, wooden swords cracking against wooden shields. The low grunt of men absorbing blows they've been trained not to react to. At the center of it all stands the doctor, the trainer, watching everything with the flat, unimpressed expression of someone who has seen 1,000 overconfident newcomers and buried a fair number of them. Despite what you might expect, the doctor isn't necessarily some brutal warlord barking orders. Many trainers were former gladiators themselves, men who survived the arena and now made their living teaching others how to do the same. There's a strange kind of mentorship buried inside all the shouting, the kind of tough coaching that comes from someone who genuinely doesn't want to watch you die on his watch, mostly because your death is also a financial loss for the school. Training begins with the basics: over and over footwork, blocking, the correct angle to hold a shield so a blow glances off instead of landing flush. You practice against a wooden post first, called a palace, striking it again and again until your arm burns and your grip starts to shake. It's not unlike the kind of repetitive drilling an athlete does today, running the same play 100 times until the body remembers it without needing the mind to think. Only after the basics are drilled into muscle memory do you move to sparring, wooden weapons against another trainee. Movements slower and more controlled than an actual fight, but no less exhausting. Every mistake earns a correction, sometimes gentle, sometimes a sharp crack of the doctor's cane across your shoulder to make sure the lesson sticks. Injuries here are simply part of the routine. A twisted ankle, a split lip, a bruise blooming dark under your ribs. There's no sitting out because you're sore. If you can stand, you train. The tolerance for pain that a gladiator carries into the arena isn't something that appears the day of a fight. It's built here, quietly, session after session, until pain becomes something you work around rather than something that stops you. By the time the sun climbs high overhead, your tunic is soaked through, your arms trembling from holding a shield raised for hours. The doctor finally calls a pause, and for a moment you allow yourself to simply breathe. But rest here is never really rest. It's just the space between one demand and the next. During the break, you find a patch of shade against the courtyard wall, and for the first time all morning, there's a chance to actually notice the world around you rather than just endure it. And what becomes clear, sitting here, catching your breath, is that the Ludus isn't just a training ground. It's an economy with its own quiet hierarchy, and you are, whether you like the idea or not, a valuable piece of property within it. The man who owns this school is called the lanista, and to him, every gladiator here represents an investment, sometimes a significant one. Training a fighter takes months, sometimes years, feeding him, housing him, paying doctors when he's injured. A skilled, experienced gladiator, one who has survived several fights and built a following among the crowds. is worth considerably more alive and winning than dead in his very first appearance. It's a strange kind of protection, offered not out of kindness, but out of simple economics. It's a bit like a modern team not wanting to overplay their star athlete into injury. Not purely out of concern for the man, but because he's worth more healthy. This is part of why the popular image of gladiators being sent out for random, meaningless slaughter isn't entirely accurate. Fights were often carefully matched, similar skill level against similar skill level, similar weight class against similar weight class, because a lopsided fight wasn't good entertainment. And it wasn't good business either. Nobody profits from watching their expensive investment get killed in 30 seconds by someone twice his experience. Around you, the hierarchy is visible in small details. Veteran gladiators, the ones who've survived a dozen fights or more, walk with a certain unspoken authority. Younger fighters, still new to the Ludus, tend to watch and learn rather than speak up. Some gladiators have even earned enough fame and money to eventually buy their own freedom, an outcome rare, but not impossible, and something every man here has at least quietly imagined for himself. There's also camaraderie here, genuine bonds formed between men who eat together, train together, bleed together. Some of the closest friendships you'll ever witness exist inside these walls, forged specifically because everyone here understands exactly what everyone else is carrying. As the break ends and the doctor's voice calls everyone back to the yard, one thought stays with you. You're not simply a prisoner counting down toward death. You are, in this world's strange logic, something closer to an asset being carefully managed. Whether that thought is comforting or unsettling probably depends entirely on the day. The announcement comes quietly, almost anticlimactic given what it means. A trainer reads a short list of names posted near the courtyard entrance, and yours is on it. Games are being held in 3 days, sponsored by a wealthy official looking to win favor with the crowds, and you are one of the names chosen to fight. There's no dramatic reaction expected of you. By now, everyone in the Ludus has learned to receive this news the same way you might receive news of an exam date or a deadline moved up at work. Something real, something that requires preparation, but not something you can afford to panic over, because panic doesn't sharpen a sword arm. It only tires it out early. The next 3 days shift in tone. Training becomes more specific, less about general conditioning, and more about refining whatever weapon style you'll actually carry into the arena. Maybe you're a Milo-heavy shield, short sword built for slow, grinding exchanges. Maybe you're lighter, faster, a Ritiarius with a net and trident, relying on speed and unpredictability rather than brute strength. Whatever your style, these final sessions sharpen it, again and again, until your body could perform the movements half asleep. Your meals increase slightly in these final days, more barley, more beans, a bit more fat layered onto your frame deliberately. The doctor checks on you more frequently now, not out of sentiment, but because a well-prepared fighter reflects well on the Ludus, and a well-prepared fighter is simply more likely to survive. The night before the games, sleep doesn't come easily, no matter how exhausted your body is. Your mind runs through movements, footwork, the specific weaknesses of the fighting style you might be matched against. It's not so different from the restless night before a major exam or a big presentation. Except the stakes here carry a weight most modern nerves never have to fully reckon with. Some gladiators pray to Nemesis, goddess of fate and retribution, believing she alone decides who walks out of the arena and who doesn't. Others simply lie awake, staring at stone ceilings, quietly rehearsing a life that suddenly feels very present, very immediate, very much worth paying attention to. By morning, there's no more preparing left to do, only walking forward toward whatever the day actually holds. You hear the arena before you ever see it, a low, distant roar. Thousands of voices layered together into something that doesn't sound quite human anymore. More like weather, like distant thunder that never quite breaks. The sound grows as you're marched through a narrow underground corridor. Torches flickering against damp stone walls, the air thick with the smell of sweat, sand, and something metallic you try not to think too hard about. This is the Hypogeum, the underground network beneath the arena floor, filled with holding cells, storage rooms, and mechanical lifts used to raise fighters, scenery, and sometimes animals directly onto the sand above. Even now, waiting in the dim torchlight, you can hear the muffled sound of the crowd shifting overhead, footsteps, laughter, someone shouting for wine. A guard checks your armor one final time, tightening a strap here, adjusting a buckle there. Your helmet, once it's lowered into place, narrows your entire world down to a small slit of light and sound. Breathing gets louder inside it. Your own heartbeat suddenly the most present thing in the world. Then the gate ahead of you begins to rise. Light floods in first, blinding after the dimness of the tunnels. And then the sound hits you fully, no longer muffled by stone and distance. Tens of thousands of people, tiered up around you in every direction. A wall of noise so complete it feels less like hearing and more like standing inside a held breath the size of a city. It's not so different, oddly, from walking out onto a stage in front of a packed stadium today. Except here the crowd isn't just watching your performance. In some very real sense, they're about to help decide whether you live. The sand beneath your feet is warm, packed firm, faint dark stains scattered across it in ways you've learned not to look at too closely. Above you, the awning stretched across parts of the Colosseum casts moving shadows, and somewhere in the elevated seats, magistrates and officials watch with the same casual interest someone today might watch a football match. Except the players here are fully aware that this particular game only ends one of a few specific ways. Across the sand, your opponent is already stepping out from the opposite gate, his armor catching the light the same way yours does. For a brief moment, sound and time seem to compress into something very small and very sharp. Just you, him, and thousands of strangers about to witness whatever happens next. The horns sound, and there's no more waiting left to do. The first exchange happens faster than thought, shield meeting shield with a heavy, ringing crack, the impact traveling up your arm and into your shoulder. There's no time to feel it properly. Training has replaced thinking, your body moving through footwork and blocks it has repeated thousands of times. In a courtyard, against a wooden post, long before any of it mattered this much. Contrary to what most people imagine, a gladiator fight wasn't simply two men trying to kill each other as quickly as possible. It was closely officiated, almost like a modern combat sport, with a referee called a unhurried standing close by, watching for fouls, pausing the match if a weapon broke or a fighter stumbled, making sure the contest stayed within the accepted rules of the sport. It's not so different from a boxing referee stepping in to separate fighters after a low blow, except the stakes here occasionally ran considerably higher than a docked point. You circle your opponent, both of you breathing hard now, sweat stinging your eyes beneath the helmet. He feints left and you almost fall for it, catching yourself just in time to block a blow aimed at your ribs. The crowd's noise rises and falls with every exchange, a strange, living rhythm that somehow makes its way into your own heartbeat, whether you want it to or not. Here's something worth sitting with, something that tends to surprise people expecting non-stop bloodshed. Most gladiator fights did not end in death. Gladiators were expensive, carefully trained investments, and owners had little interest in losing valuable fighters over every single match. Many contests ended when one fighter was clearly beaten, exhausted, disarmed, or wounded enough that continuing served no purpose. At that point, the defeated fighter could raise a finger, a small, simple gesture asking for mercy, leaving his fate in the hands of the event's sponsor and often the mood of the crowd. You feel your opponent's strikes slowing, his stance faltering, and in one decisive movement, you knock the sword from his hand, your blade resting just beneath his chin. The crowd erupts, thousands of voices rising together, some already calling for mercy, others silent, waiting. Above, the sponsor of the games rises from his seat, and for a long, suspended moment, the entire arena seems to hold its breath alongside you, waiting to see which way a single hand gesture will fall. The sponsor's hand rises, thumb turned inward toward his own chest. A gesture the crowd immediately understands, even if its exact meaning has been debated by historians for centuries. Whatever the precise sign truly was, its message here is unmistakable. Mercy. Your opponent lives. You step back, lowering your sword, and something in your chest loosens all at once. The tight, controlled focus of the fight finally allowed to unclench. Your opponent is helped to his feet by arena attendants, wounded but breathing, already being led back toward the tunnels for treatment. There's no hatred left between you now, only the strange, exhausted respect of two men who just risked everything and both walked away from it. The crowd's attention shifts toward you, and for a brief moment, the noise directed your way feels less like the roar from earlier and more like something almost warm. Some gladiators, particularly skilled or particularly memorable ones, became genuine celebrities in Roman society, their names scratched into walls as graffiti, their images painted onto pottery and glass. They were admired in a way not entirely unlike how people follow professional athletes today, complete with dedicated fans and, occasionally, uncomfortably enthusiastic admirers. You're led back through the same tunnels you entered through, torchlight flickering against stone, the roar of the crowd slowly fading behind you into something distant and unreal. It feels almost like waking from an especially vivid dream. A physician examines your wounds, minor compared to what they could have been, cleaning and wrapping a cut along your forearm you don't even remember receiving. Later, back in your cell at the Ludus, the adrenaline finally drains out of your body all at once, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion unlike anything training alone ever produced. You did not die today. You did not even lose today. And in this strange, brutal world, that outcome simple survival with your reputation intact is very close to the best possible ending available to you. Somewhere down the corridor, another gladiator murmurs quiet congratulations. Tomorrow, training resumes because, in the Ludus, there is no such thing as a permanent finish line, only the space between one fight and whatever eventually comes next. Lying in the quiet dark of your cell, body aching in ways sleep alone won't fully fix. It's worth sitting for a moment with everything today actually asked of you. Not just physical endurance, though there was plenty of that, but a particular kind of steadiness, the ability to walk toward genuine danger, again and again, and still function, still think, still fight with a clear head instead of collapsing into fear. Maybe that's the real story hidden beneath all of the sand and noise and spectacle. Not that gladiators were fearless, most of them almost certainly weren't, but that they learned to carry fear alongside everything else they carried, without letting it decide the outcome for them. There's something quietly human in that, something that doesn't feel entirely bound to ancient Rome. Most of us, in smaller and far less bloody ways, are asked to do difficult things while afraid, and somehow keep moving anyway. Whatever tomorrow eventually brings, another fight, more training, or simply another quiet day inside these walls, tonight at least, you survived. Your name stays scratched into the world a little longer. And on that note, this particular day and this particular story comes to its close. Wherever you're listening from, whatever weight your own day carried, let it set itself down now. You don't have to carry anything else tonight. Just rest and let the rest take care of itself.